Welcome to another interesting, exciting episode of Darker Days Radio. We are a horror and many other hobbies right now, wargaming podcast, normally focusing on things like World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness, if you're new to us, though we do also cover other horror RPGs, and that is going to be the topic of today. We'll be talking to Charlie from Parable Games and quickly going over again about Shiver, because we spoke to Charlie at UK Games Expo, and then we're going to be talking to Charlie about the Parable Games' upcoming Kickstarter for their new game called Don't Play This Game. I am one of your regular hosts, Chris, and I am joined by one of our other regular hosts, Crystal. Hello, Crystal.
Hello.
How are things going, Crystal?
They are definitely going.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah. What you cannot see is I have a desk that is... So, to give you an idea, I have what you can see in front of me. This, obviously, in the mind's eye of people listening, I've got my desk with the keyboard. So the side is my work laptop, because I have a separate laptop for all that. And then, to my other side, I have about a third of my paints out because I've been painting Tyranids that are there. And then I've also got my Kingdom Death figures. And then behind me is also the giant black box of Kingdom Death Gamblers expansion. And that's just miniatures, and it's about that thick and that big.
You need to share with me when you paint the fig that I sent you from Gen
Oh
Con.
yeah, it's totally a rad model. I've been working on some pin-up miniatures as to kind of get myself in the mood for painting flesh. And what interesting things have you been up to, Crystal? Anything fun hobby-wise?
I started back teaching for the school year, which has started off really, really good, and now I'm starting to get into the swing of things. Hobby-wise, I'm working on several different projects. I'm hoping to get our Robo Pip primer out. This has been a little bit longer because we've had some snafus with people that work further on down the project line. But we're working them out, and we're going to get it out there. And then I will have 2 different Pip primers that I have written over the summer because I played around a lot with the mechanics, and I didn't want anyone who is new to the game to be playing around with those mechanics. One is going to be a Hono Bono Pip, which I talked about a little bit, which is like gentle role-playing. It's also going to be like a solo Pip adventure. If you like things like Animal Crossing or even like Cult of the Lamb, with less murder, you can. That's going to be the game for you. And then another one that I don't want to talk about because I have to reach out to previous writers because I'm making a statement game on some things that are happening in the industry right now. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I finished up on some writing contracts recently, and got some other ones in the works. Like, I was really happy I finished up stuff, so I'm eagerly waiting. I don't know the date for when the Absolver book comes out from Cubicle 7 for Wrath and Glory. Though I did paint a classic 2nd edition plastic Space Marine, so from the classic Space Warhammer 40,000 2nd edition box set for Darren Lathan's 90s Marine challenge that was on Instagram. So I painted up as an Absolver, and he's so dinky compared to a Primaris Marine. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But that's where I started, obviously, with wargaming and everything in general. Yeah, and obviously playing Necromunda, but we'll keep all that wargaming shenanigans to Realm of Fire, because I really need to get another episode of that done. Other episodes of things coming up, we should do, if I can pin down Mike, we will get done the last of the Chaos Gods episodes for Darkhammer. I want to talk about the Orgoth for Dark Iron, because they're kind of fun. And we've got a cool episode I'm recording on Monday, which I'm not going to talk about yet. That is adjacent to everything we do anyway. So that's going to be a fun episode.
I'm going to... now that school is back in the swing of things, I'm going to keep recording my RPG mentorship podcast.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Series as well, and keep going with that. And then we also have, I'm hoping to have it done for Halloween. I'm almost done with the blog post for my ghost hunting that I did over the
Yes.
summer with everything. So I wanted to get that recorded with you guys too.
That'd be cool. Yeah. That'd be really good. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that'll be something for the mentorship thing. We should really talk
Yep.
about laying out PDFs, because I've done some of that. I'm
Yep.
going to be doing some more. So I'm getting more practice with that. Anyway, that's enough bollocks for now. Let's move on to the main point of this topic, with this episode. So, Charlie, welcome to the show. Thank you again for chatting to me at UK Games Expo and giving us a brief overview of Shiver, but in a less noisy environment and more controlled conditions. How about you introduce yourself, how you got into RPGs and gaming in general, and really where Parable Games came from?
Absolutely. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Charlie Menzies. I'm the creative director over at Parable Games. In terms of like where I got started with RPGs, it was probably back in university that I kind of discovered it with the very typical. Someone wanted to run D&D 5e, ran some games. It was very fun. I got hooked, and kind of was very much kind of more of a player to begin with. But then after leaving university, so a little bit of context, kind of before I moved into game design, I was in film and TV production. So I'd kind of traveled around the UK doing various freelance bits, and I eventually ended up moving to London, but none of my friends were there, and I was writing prose stuff and scripts and things in the background, and I ended up winning a competition for a short story that I wrote, which finally gave me the money so I could actually afford all the D&D books I needed to run games, because before that I could not. So I got those and like set up like a online game to kind of stay in touch with my screenwriter friends and kind of people who I used to kind of make films with. And it was really, really fun. Like I really got the bug for being a GM. Kind of tinkered and played around kind of with 5e quite a bit, but I started butting up against a couple of problems when running 5e. Of that, I'm a huge horror movie nerd, and I kept trying to replicate horror movie scenarios, including Tremors, Friday the 13th, a haunted house story, all within kind of the same campaign, with very, very mixed degrees of success. And on the other side of that, for my players, quite a few of them were dyslexic or dysnumerate and were really struggling with D&D as a system, 5 in particular.
Yeah.
So we kind of had these things of like, I'm sure for those who kind of gem out there know what it's like trying to run horror and keep that tension and atmosphere up. With D&D, it kind of feels like you're pulling all the levers and ropes behind the scenes to make all the special effects work, and it's very, very, it's a large amount of management. And for my players, they were getting constantly pulled out by not knowing what to roll, having to do maths, finding stuff quite tricky. So I decided I kind of had some time off work one time, and I basically homebrewed like a small system, really simple, bare bones, and just ran like one-shot movie nights, kind of with my friends to kind of warm into that system, looking to potentially transfer our D&D game into something that was a bit easier. And I'd written that all out in various notebooks and stuff. And one time I went back up north to Nottinghamshire, where kind of most of my family's based, and where I'm now based again. I've moved back up here. And my brother owns a friendly local gaming store, and he was very interested in what I've been up to. So I showed him my notebook after Christmas dinner, and he was flicking through with a glass of whiskey. And then he kind of closed it and looked at me and said, "When do you want to make it?" And I was very much like, "Oh, I thought you'd just enjoy this because it was just a fun thing I was doing with my friends." And he was like, "No, this is something I'm not seeing in my store, is a system that replicates that B-movie horror atmosphere, and as well as so broadly." Because, and then that went on to become Shiver. We developed that together, because what Shiver is, it's a universal toolkit that lets you bring your favorite horror movies to life, and that can be in any setting. any time as any character anywhere. So you can really play Tremors one night, then do Aliens the next, do peasants fighting demon boars. You can really jump around the map and kind of play any kind of horror movie you can imagine, or adapt any horror movie, book, TV show, piece of horror media that you love and bring it to life on tabletop. And that's Shiver, and that's how it kind of came to be and how I got into role playing, kind of all rolls into one.
Cool. No, that's great. I mean, so then you just then had to go through the process of, I guess, actually turning notes into actual words.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you need art, and then there's the whole fun of, is it just going to be on PDF or is it going to be printed? And the fun of and I've done some of that. I've done that when at one point stuff was going to be print, when we were going to be able to get some stuff on print on demand, and making stuff for Drive Through RPG that is just a PDF versus it can be printed has other issues to do with, what is it? Isn't it the thing that, isn't it InDesign checks? It checks the saturation, isn't it, of the ink? Like what it would be.
So I do the layout and print stuff for all of our books as well. So I taught myself it when we kind of got started, and there's tons of, like, I was for the first book I was woefully unaware of how much kind of work and stuff that was going to go into it. So I had spent many late nights kind of learning kind of new things, talking to the printers. I think the thing you're talking about there is you have an ink limit. So basically, like, there is a percentage level of ink and color that can be used on a page without it like just being dripping with ink or using too much ink beyond the budget. So it's and that's just like one facet. Don't get me started on trapping. Like, I hate
Gutters,
trapping with a fiery passion.
Bleed.
This is why I am not a layout person at all.
Sorry, what's that one? Do you say that, is that trapping or tracking?
Trapping.
So what's that mean?
So trapping is to do with how text is outlined in order to kind of compensate for drift within the print process.
Okay.
And in Shiver, it was a pain in the ass because so black text, like, you don't really know about it if you're doing black text on general, like, lighter background. When you do white text on black background, which, because it's a horror game and it looks really punchy, it's my favorite. You have to do it manually on every section of text and get it right. And
I've
there was a
heard
lot of miscommunications about measurements of, like, how thick the trapping should be, how is it applied. It was like a whole thing. They basically had to teach, our printers were lovely, like, they basically had to teach me how to trap manually because it was really difficult to do for that, for a 240 page book. It was a bit of a nightmare.
Wow. That's something I'm going to have to read up. That'll be really interesting. I mean, I think for a while we're going to just stick to, like, doing digital, and I don't think anything I'm working on has or will have white text on black. But it's
a bit of advice from me. Possibly avoid it. Aesthetically, it looks very pretty, but it can be a real killer.
It's also a nightmare for accessibility. So
I mean, it's really nice if it. I mean, I have everything in dark mode, obviously, on screen. So that's the only. I think that's the only case where it's fine is if you've got PDFs. Is dark mode PDFs? They're a joy, but otherwise, no. So so that's how you got in. So. And then also you went through the Kickstarter process. How did you find that? Because Kickstarter has changed a lot in what people expect from it as backers. I think there's also maybe a difference in expectations from collaborators on a project from what they get out of it. And then obviously there's costs, because when was Shiver in development and going through that process? Because obviously I guess you were in kind of straddling the pandemic, or...
So it went to Kickstarter during the pandemic. So it was 2020. I think the campaign launched in October. Then we funded during then and did production as we kind of came out of the pandemic, and then got hit with the shipping crisis.
No.
It was like literally still delivered on time. So I was very happy, but it was a real, because we had a big discussion about it of, do we wait and see where things land with the pandemics. This is not going to be representative of like running a normal campaign. It's going to feel very different. But I would argue now that post-pandemic landscape has drastically changed Kickstarter and expectations. Anyway, so we would have been dealing with something quite different if we'd waited. But my brother's sheer confidence of, no, Hail Mary kick, we're going to do it now. The game's great. I think people will want this, and we want people playing horror movies at home. One of the big things that we did is that we pumped a good chunk of our development fund that we'd kind of put into it to building a online dice roller for free. Because obviously Shiver uses symbolic dice, which we'll get into a little bit later. But we wanted to make sure that as soon as the game was released and digital files were going out, that people could play it the way that it was designed. Like, we do have numerical conversions, but the system just sings when you use the symbolic dice. So we were kind of, so that was there up front and center really, really early. So that was one of the big changes.
What's that
about Kickstarter? Stressful.
Yeah. What's that? Your dice roller. What? How did you design that? Like, what's the? Because sorry, I've designed. I've got a behind the scenes. I've got a character sheet builder that I use for checking things that I put into for like for my contract work to make sure the maths for the NPCs work out right. So that's all written in Python and uses Python Dash and runs in the cloud. So I don't actually have to have it anywhere. So with your dice roller, kind of like, what's the tech stack for like that? Out of interest.
So in terms of like the development of it, so I didn't code it, but I basically designed like did it in like Adobe XD and did like an explainer of like how it should work, and then worked with our friend James Braund, who's a programmer, on it. I'm trying to remember what he might have done it in React, I think.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And because
I'm
it has
playing around with it
well.
right now.
It's a React JavaScript, or it's either JavaScript or it'll be TypeScript, I mostly imagine.
I think so yeah.
I need to start learning it for my day job is TypeScript, and we should be using React. It's that's something I'm kind of, again, kind of like straddling on things. It's like, I can do this now. I have confidence I can build something in the cloud and leave it on AWS and anyone can use it. But I don't want them to use it too much because then it charges me. You can't have too many instances of it running, or else my account's going to get wasted. Right. So, and that's something we can get on to talking about with Shiver, and we can go over what we covered at UK Games Expo. So as you say, Shiver is a horror RPG that accommodates any kind of type of horror genre you've seen. So if you want to run a giallo, you could do that. If you want to run Hammer horror, you could do that. If you want to run Saw, you can do that, but I don't see why that would be that much fun, because Saw is just so blasé these days. You could run slashers, you could run anything really with the system, which is really good. And then the core aspect is you've got these narrative dice, so you've got symbols on them and each symbol relates to a particular stat, and when you roll those dice, it kind of helps you A, understand whether you've succeeded, but also B, give some flavor, some color to the action that you're doing. Or if you don't succeed the way you were expecting, you might be able to succeed in a different manner. So rather than using your wits, you use your brute force, or something magic kind of supernatural occurs.
Exactly, yeah. So we've called that reading the knuckle bones. So it's a nice, fun way we found of like reading mixed success within kind of a dice pool that's entirely symbolic. Obviously, like, she was very story focused. Like, we wanted it to feel like playing a movie. So we very much encouraged, like, when you see a sea of one color or shape, that is not what you intended, but something you get, that both director, so our version of a GM, and player can kind of improvise and play off of that dice pool together. And we found it's been really, really good for new players and new GMs, because if somebody fails, they say, like, you rolled a 9, you fail, what do you want to do next? It doesn't really give you kind of a yes and hook to move forward sometimes with numerical systems, which can be really tricky for both new GMs and new players, of then not really knowing what to do and getting a bit paralyzed by it. But if a GM who's more experienced is like nudging a player, being like, well, you wanted to kick down the door, but you rolled a load of smarts here rather than grit. Like, can you think of like a smart way that maybe they kind of get around this using the environment possibly? So it can be like that nice little nudge to kind of move things forward in a different way. There's also interesting stuff in the dice pool when you fail or you get one of those mixed successes and you roll strange. So it engages another narrative mechanic called the Doom Clock. So for every strange symbol, so it's our symbol for anything that crosses the line of normality. So like changing into a werewolf, levitating a chair, using dark magic, the works, speaking to ghosts, whatever. As long as it's a little bit weird, it's going to go in the strange pool. For all those strange symbols that are present, it ticks up a minute on the Doom Clock. And at 15-minute markers, horror movie events happen. So with all the stories that we write for Shiver, we give you 4 major events that replicate that kind of 3-act movie structure kind of for you and give you some big moments to splash in on your players. To like take a slasher movie, for example, so at 1:15, somebody might cut the power at Camp Crystal Lake. Then somebody sabotages the school bus, which is your main escape vehicle. 1:45, Camp Counselor Kenny screams, he's dead. Key NPC is out of the game. He cannot help you find a shotgun anymore. He is dead. And then at midnight, your Jason Voorhees or your Michael Myers, your Freddy Krueger, your Ghostface comes out of the woods and becomes more of a permanent stalking threat within the world. So it gives you that element of narrative pace. The really nice thing I find though is like we were talking about earlier with D&D, with the juggling element that I was talking about, with like trying to maintain that horror tone, that tension. I find the Doom Clock does kind of, in terms of like how I designed it, was when it gives it a massive consequence for failure that's visual for the players. So when they fail or get that mixed success and it ticks up in front of them, because we track it along the top of our screens on the back of the sheets, people start biting their nails. They consider like, should I be rolling right now? Is someone who's actually, going to succeed at this, should they roll? Should I give it a stab? It's like, so it becomes more of a negotiation around who's going to be rolling. Like, should we be rolling? Like, if I roll, if I fail, like, something's going to happen. I don't know what it is. It's going to be spooky. It's going to be bad. That's all they know, because all of those events are obscured from the players. So it kind of just creates this very palpable tension that is completely controlled by the players and how they interact with it, their decisions, and ultimately their failures when they roll.
I love those stress mechanics that do that, where it makes the players like absolutely second guess everything that they do. And I feel like that helps to keep everybody into that horror mind frame, even when you're having to do things like roll dice and stuff that might take you or pull you out traditionally. Like that visual and that feel of like, oh no, something bad's going to happen doesn't go away.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, obviously I think the evolution we saw in Vampire, for instance, with Hunger Dice is good, because it's a tactile reminder of your vampire's about to lose his rag. And then also, I'm right in thinking, aren't I, Charlie, that this the system is also the players are always the people that are rolling the dice. The GM is never rolling against players. They're setting the challenge, and the players are rolling.
Yeah, so the GM only really rolls when they're contesting against an enemy, I would say, or they're rolling to control an enemy. That's it in terms of it. The players are then rolling against. They set the challenge, and the players are rolling.
So that means for people listening to this, then who are for your touchstones of where to kind of you're thinking of grabbing hold of Shiver. I think for me personally, there's elements I recognize from like the Powered by the Apocalypse and Blades in the Dark. Cipher system with it is Cipher with Star Wars, isn't it? With the narrative dice. I've got this
yes. The Cipher system, Star Wars, because there's a couple of different Star Wars iterations.
The Star Wars with has symbols. I mean, that actually preceding that was Warhammer Fantasy 3rd Edition. You also used symbols in its roleplay game for how things happened. So I mean, that's good. And obviously it's a dice pool system, which is great, because this comes back to what you were saying, Charlie, like it's just so easy when it's a dice pool. It's like an extra die is good. one less die is bad. Not someone tells you to roll 2d4 plus 2, and you're like, is that better than rolling d6 plus 3? It's like, not everyone has in their head averages and percentiles and how to accommodate that. And that is why ultimately I'm a big fan of dice pool systems, or things that are where you can see the bell curve, and it's very obvious to players what a die does to an extra die or remove one does to the game for them. That's great, cool. And then there's quite a few things that you had out at UK Games Expo for Shiver. So there's a few setting books, or kind of like genre books, weren't there? There's
so our first major expansion that we've done after the kind of core system and the storybook that went alongside it was Shiver Gothic, which is a mixture of new rules, like addendum rules that you can kind of add in, as well as a setting book. So it's a bit of a blend. So in terms of on the rules front, what it adds is rules for playing as monsters. So if you wanted to like assemble your very own like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or your BPRD like type teams, is very much in that vein within like a kind of Hammer horror style world. However, like I always stress this with Shiver, of that there is nothing stopping you taking the Frankenstein's monster rules, the Invisible Man rules, and throwing them into space, or throwing them even further back in time. Like it's designed to be very much easy. Like you can pull those rules out and you can place them wherever you want in whatever story that you want. So you can very much do, the 1980s Monster Squad, but the kids are the bad guys, and the poor old monsters are the goodies. But yeah, so that's the kind of with some extra backgrounds, and we also introduced the Doom calendar, which is about longer form play, tying together like Doom clocks, so they have more of a kind of long lasting effect. As well as the players' kind of bigger like narrative decisions as well. So whilst the Doom clock tends to affect things in the immediacy of time around the players and make things worse, what the Doom calendar does is it affects the world around the players. So the setting that the Gothic book is set within is Spirehome. It's an original big Gothic walled city in the last a kind of bastion of Europa that still has monsters within its borders. So it is the kind of with the Doom calendar, as it ticks up as they play through the big story that's in there, certain districts become unsafe at night, monsters begin to roam, conspiracies move forward, kind of like against the players. Their sanctuary, their home can get burned down later down the line, and they have to relocate and lose a bunch of things. So it's that idea of that consequence again, but a longer form consequence, because with the kind of original kind of core system, it's very focused on that movie night experience of like what I call like a 1-to-3 shot a lot of the time. Worked really well for that, but I wanted to kind of add something in there as well as kind of really show people that you can play a very long form game with Shiver, because we have been like that. So Spirehome was our home game that I did whilst we were playing with the core system. And then the secondary book for Gothic is Disciples of Dregstone, which gives you backgrounds for playing as our version of Ratfolk called Scorians, which are basically, it's gone very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles under the city because of religious zealots raiding an alchemist tower, dumping it into the sewers.
Brilliant.
And the Ratfolk have the rats have mutated into this medieval society that worship alchemy and are ruled over by a despotic rat king. That your players can get embroiled in a revolution. So it's kind of one part sewer punk, other part Les Mis, with a lot of dark dungeon crawly sewer based horror as well, and also gives you rules for playing as Ratfolk.
That's cool.
I really like the fact that you took your stress mechanic and also gave a long term. Because one of the biggest things that I found, I hosted a horror RPG series. Panel series at Gen Con, and a lot of people were like, we have no clue how to run a long-term horror game, and that looks like it's a very quick and easy adjustment to the play style thinking with all of that stuff too, that allows you to have smaller moments within, but also the larger long-term moments.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and we've got like all full like blank Doom calendars that are form fillable as well. So if you just want to kind of tear out the Doom calendar mechanic and put it on a sci-fi game, then you can as well.
That's awesome.
So it's all the design elements. That it's one of the big things we're big on with Shiver is that we don't want to obscure how we make stuff. We kind of want to be like, these are tools that we use to make things. Please go and make stuff. I want to go see the crazy horror movies that are in everybody's heads. It's kind of the point of Shiver for me, is that I really want to encourage people to tell their own stories, tell their own horror stories, and bring them to life on the tabletop, as well as play like their favorites as well, obviously. But it's really being able to enable people to create new stories for a rule set. I think it's just very, very rewarding. So yeah, so that's why we're very open with how we design stuff.
And I was going to say with the Doom calendar, that addresses quite. I think the thing which is why the problem with long-term horror, when you've got players that maybe come from other, let's just say they come from the traditional D&D background of role-playing, is that for when you've got horror game, I think it's especially true for horror games, is when players as a collective feel that inaction is the best option, because if they don't engage with the things going on as much, then nothing bad will happen. They're trying to play a zero-sum game. And what I've done previously, and we've it's on a very old episode of Darker Days of Radio where we looked at how you build Chronicles, is what I call, again, it's a calendar, and it's how to keep it organic. And it's about the idea that you need to show players that not doing stuff is also bad. So they shouldn't be afraid to act, because everything they do will have a result in the world, because you'll suddenly see that, and you'll see the price of choice as well, because they could act on one branch or act on another, and you've then got your calendar to show how those branches evolve, either through inaction, or if they have acted on it, then you've stopped that clock, or you've delayed it, or whatever. I think in traditional D&D, it's that whole thing of, well, if I don't go in that room, I don't know the monster's there, I don't need to care. It's out of sight, out of mind, it don't exist. No object permanence. I will go down this route and we're safe, which is very different to having that feeling like, in horror, if you don't do something bad will happen. And if you do something different bad will happen. That's the point, and that's the tension. So that's really cool. Great. Okay. I think that's, like I say, people can go back to the YouTube video. They can see the products and the artwork there. Obviously, they can go over to the Parable Games website and also, have a look at the products available there. But we should move on to the main topic then, which is don't play this game. So, Charlie, this is a game that will be coming to Kickstarter soon.
Yes, so the campaign will be launching on October 3rd.
Okay.
For Don't Play This Game. So don't play this game, but obviously please do. It's a bit of a design departure for me, in terms of kind of what we've been doing with Shiver before. So this is a solo RPG of like cursed found footage horror, is how I would put it. And the idea of it is, and like where it came from, is, did either of you ever get like a chain letter or like a chain email where it's like, if you don't do something in 7 days, something terrible is going to happen to you. So I was reminiscing with some friends about like kind of our secondary school, and we were all kind of, and for some reason it came up of like when we first got given emails, those chain emails went around like absolute wildfire, like as soon as like people kind of got their hands on like a school email and stuff. And it kind of got me to thinking of like, that's actually quite creepy, of that they're always kind of seen as something that's quite silly, really, I think, kind of contextually, but it got me to thinking of like, what if there was an entity, some kind of evil thing that spread that way, a bit like a virus, and what it wanted to do was play a game with people, but its idea of playing a game was to make horrible, strange, supernatural and creepy things happen in that person's life, and then make them record it in some way, whether it's writing it down, recording an audio log, a video, drawing a picture, because that's how it feeds. That's how it keeps alive, is by people interacting with the things that it's making happen. And then if somebody doesn't interact with them, and doesn't play the game, it then escalate things to a point that it's probably going to get very, very bad for that person, most likely kill them. So it's kind of a no-win scenario for a player, unfortunately, in some ways. The best chance that people have really is to play and see if they can find the entity and defeat it. But win or lose, the record that someone has been making through playing this game gets passed on, whether that's to another character that you make, or say I had finished and I could go, Chris, I've just finished this. Here you go. Here's my record. You're now cursed. And if you had the core rulebook, you could then roll to kind of find your first starting event, read my record, whether my character is alive or dead. Either way it works. You could have dug it up in the back garden, could have arrived in the post, or it could have been handed over to you by my kind of very nervous character who's doing it to try and stay alive and get the game away from them. You can then basically create your own found footage sequel to that. And the idea with this is having a solo RPG that encourages a multiplayer community of creepy storytelling where people interact and spiderweb off of everyone else's ideas to try and kind of find a solution to defeating the game. Ironically, though, by playing the game, it's what keeps the entity alive. So whether they will be able to win or not is anybody's guess.
That's really cool. I think that's the thing that changes, because there are other, like, I think there are other examples of solo RPGs out there, but I think it's that sharing of the content of that collected content at the end to another player. And if you've got a group of friends who are playing it, you can literally go pass the parcel with it, and you pass the journal on.
That.
And then you have a new character because you've now got a new pack. And then eventually you might get your original pack back that's now just grown into this fat wodge of madness. And yeah, I mean, it taps into a lot of things, because obviously if we're going to talk about found footage, we can't talk about found footage unless we talk about good old Ghostwatch, which is ancient, brilliant UK TV, which was banned. And the more recent... Inside Number 9, which was meant to be live, but it was basically Ghostwatch. They just did a Ghostwatch one year. That was really good fun. And yeah, I mean, found footage is I think the other things that spring to mind is also those classic kind of YouTube video series, like, was it Marble Hornets was one?
Yes. That's definitely a big inspiration. It's something I grew up with. I'd say the Blair Witch definitely factors in for me. I mean, the way I pitched this game to my brother was, think of it like Pokemon Go, but instead of catching a Charizard, you're going to go get the Blair Witch and try not to die. Because that's one of the things the book does that I think also differentiates, is it sometimes tells you to put the book down and go out and take a picture of an abandoned building, or go on a walk in the woods somewhere, or go and find and make something that is something that you've discovered on your doorstep. So it's very rather than kind of like the foundation stone of journaling, which I think is a foundation stone, I think, for a reason. It's like the core of this kind of storytelling element of solo RPGs. What we wanted it to be was to go beyond the journal and become this big creepy scrapbook that also was way more experiential. Like, it was getting you up and getting you moving and getting you kind of out there and kind of playing around with stuff. Obviously, you don't have to do that. Like, you can find an image of a spooky house online, drag it into your record and put that in there as well. So there's multiple ways to play the game, but it's that multimedia aspect is something I really want to encourage.
I mean, in this day and age, it's more possible than ever, because the whole point is, like, everyone's literally got a camera or video camera in their pocket. There's so many Instagram filters out there you could potentially utilize to create your imagery. Like, it's just
Google Earth, like
Google Earth. I mean, it is definitely, it does allow that kind of, like, if you need something to act as a vehicle for your creative expression, I could see it as being a real asset for that. So that's really cool. So I guess the thing which I have the question I've got then with the concept is, it's mostly like it's a question. It's something that really can't be answered. It's a solo RPG experience. Is there end game state? Is the end game state essentially going, I've finished telling the story I want with my character and gathering the let's call them the relics, the bits of information, the media? Is the end state when you go, I'm done, and I pass it on? Is that the end state that's when you win? When you go, I've made something cool and I want to pass on this collection to someone.
So internally, it's what we've been calling it in the company is like the end of a cycle. So it's like whenever your character dies or defeats their entity, it gets to the Passover point. So that kind of full cycle is kind of a end to kind of one iteration of the game, as it were, a bit like playing a round, as it were.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of beauty of it, is that you can pass it on to someone else, so then it can continue for somebody else, or you can create a new character when you're kind of good and ready, and then do a new chapter that's then based off of something that you've kind of worked on, and start building, and you can build your own kind of narrative world within it, regardless of like kind of whether you're handing it out to the community or not. So you can really play around with that. So I'd say, that's kind of the end state of a singular cycle. But it's, as you say, when you're satisfied that the story that you want to tell has been told, then you can put it down for a while and kind of not play with it. But you may come up with a idea for a completely different character, a completely different perspective, a different environment to kind of play in, and give it a try again. And it's the kind of beauty of the book in terms of that. The demo that's out at the moment is a linear experience of like 10 events that you can play through. The main book is very different in the fact that it's more like kind of traditional solo RPGs where you have multiple events. You're prompted to roll a dice at the end, and you move relatively randomly through the book until you kind of get to an end sequence. I have banded those to try and replicate the pacing of a found footage movie, again, with my kind of cinema obsessiveness with it, of doing a lot of crunchy maths behind the scenes that the players don't have to see to get that pace correct, as well as like the structural bandings of kind of hitting those like main beats as well. So in terms of that, that's really it. It's where the player's satisfaction with it is. But I think it is something that you can play, 3 iterations of, put down. Then maybe you've moved house. You've made you've met like a new group of people. You want to have a nice kind of interesting like bonding experience. Maybe you've joined a writing group and you say like, hey, I have this game, and then you can basically write something and then pass it on to another person. And it can go around in a circle, and it can be used in so many different ways, whether it's for your own personal creative expression, for group creative expression, to just as something that's kind of like, maybe you want to practice photography a bit more, so then you do a pass that is just entirely, I'm gonna only use like photos and give myself a word limit on each entry, or I'm gonna want to practice my performance or do more video or like audio stuff. So it's, again, like with the stuff we're saying about Shiver, is very much a framework of a rule set to encourage people to tell stories and create, but kind of broadening the scope a bit more in terms of like, grab your paintbrushes, grab your pencils, grab your voice recorder, your camera, and really like kind of go out there and make something and like tell a story in the way that you deem fit. Like, I think we've really opened up the bounds of how you can tell a story with this, compared to the more traditional like pen and paper at the table experience with an RPG.
I really like how this addresses some of the concerns about playing a solo RPG, which is that once you're done, nobody else sees it. So is it really an RPG? And there's a lot of discussion around that. And like, this is like, no, you take this and then you hand it off to somebody who wants to play. I am huge on like the TikTok role playing, and like I love seeing like characters and stuff like that, and storylines and plots and people playing the game, like role playing games on TikTok. I'm really curious to see how that's gonna pop up when this game hits Kickstarter and people start playing it.
So we've had some lovely examples with our Discord community, which is kind of growing a bit, which is called "Don't Share This Server," hilariously. And we've been talking to various people who've kind of got the demo. So someone messaged us an error on TikTok, and what they're doing is they're kind of doing some rolling, kind of like writing up kind of what they kind of feel that they might need, and then they're going out into the woods and live action role playing it in chapters and recording it as video. Is their
I
approach.
cannot wait to see that so much.
I'm very excited for that one. And then on our currently we've got someone who's on the Discord who has been releasing audio logs, accompanied
Nice.
with photos to kind of explain. So in terms of like what's going on, and that's been fascinating and like really well performed and like really enjoying it. And then there's text, there's drawings, there's like someone's resurrected an old blog website and they've just completely retrofitted it to play the game on there. Like it's really encouraging and nice to see of just from a 10 event demo, people have already run wild with it in a lot of ways. So I'm very, very excited to see what happens when the whole meaty book with, you know, kind of numerous events comes out, like way more than 10. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
I was thinking that going back to like the classic kind of found footage kind of concepts, you know, the Paranormal Activity, you know, series, and basically everything else that apes it. The thing which kind of sprung to mind as an idea as well is because this clearly demonstrates the fact that what would have been back in the day of World of Darkness games called blue booking is so much more than just writing down what does your character do between the events of this story and this story. And thinking about what you were saying, Crystal, with you know the fact we're gonna discuss like what is ghost hunting like in reality. Is it bollocks and so forth. But the thing which always happens when you in these ghost hunting shows, especially if you watch Ghost Adventures is the classic one for it, is when they've been as a group. You can imagine that the group game you could run is, and it's one of my favorite type of things to do with classic Chronicles of Darkness, is just doing the haunted house. No one's got any powers. They're just going in with a camera and some audio equipment. But the characters, when they leave, some of them get attachments. And so this, I feel like Don't Play This Game would be very good at modeling between episodes a character dealing with an attachment, and then that way you've narratively strung together what may be different ghost hunting missions. We'll call them missions but you know what I mean. I just see there's a way it definitely could be act as a very good tool to bolt onto another game which does the group play and then deal with, right, okay, your character's got the attachment this week, go hog wild on how you record what that attachment is like.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's something I've discussed with Barney about for Shiver of that. What an experiment I would like to do is to create a record and play through Don't Play This Game, and then use every event and little artifacts that I make as handouts in a Shiver game for a group of people investigating the disappearance of that character. Yeah, like, because it basically generates a story. Yeah, and generate stuff for you to give to your players that they can interact with. That's really in detail, in depth. But you get the fun of it doesn't feel like stressful prep then. You're playing a game. And you're getting a lot out of it, and then you can pass that on to someone else, and they can benefit from it as well. Then you can use it for your game as well, and it really kind of gives you massive options. But yeah, no, I really love that idea of it coming after us. Like, we've gone and investigated a haunted house, we've gotten away with our lives, but something, you know, someone has picked up a book and has basically found somebody's record in the haunted library, for example, and has accidentally cursed themselves and it's attached it themselves to it.
And that's the, you know, it's always that classic thing. It's the first 5 minutes in Supernatural where you find out who's the victim this week. So having a way of generating your victim in a collaborative kind of found footage way is really interesting. Okay, so as we're getting close to the end, so obviously for the Kickstarter, there's the book, and there's going to be, as well as the book, are there some other elements that will be in the initial Kickstarter to help, you know, that'll, you know, I guess tools, things that facilitate playing the game?
Absolutely. So the kind of main thing front and center is the rule book that explains playing the game, safety tools, as well as like how to fill in your character's anchor, so our version of like a character sheet. Along with that, we're doing digital and physical versions of a record. So basically like a nice kind of grungy notebook that's kind of like ready to go to use for that. We also used a full set of polyhedral dice, so we're releasing a blood splattered dice set. The implication being that it potentially belonged to someone else who was cursed before you, and it didn't end very well for them. The other thing that we're doing is something called inheritance boxes. So these are unique storylines and sets of events that come in a little booklet within a box, but they also come with artifacts. So one, for example, is called the Toy Box, which is also about a kind of like spooky toy factory and store, where you'll receive like this little kind of booklet that gives you extra stuff to interact with, but you'll also have artifacts that you can interact with, take photos of, and play around with, put in places that you want. So, like one of them that's in the kind of key part of the master has been a distressed doll head. We ordered some surplus doll heads, and I'm going to be distressing those and making unique artifacts to go in these boxes, including little music boxes that play different tunes. So each one will have a little different tune in, as well as a thumbstick with like some digital photos, audio recordings, various bits. So basically you've got the main book itself, but you can plug in these extra events with like kind of a bunch of artifacts like that are ready for you to interact with, and build out a very like kind of tailored experience that focuses down a chain. So that is something that we're offering as well, and there will be 3 different boxes that we'll be doing. We'll be doing an early bird special inheritance if we fund early as well, which I won't reveal exactly what that is yet, but it'll be something that if we fund early, everyone will receive a unique inheritance, which will be filled with a lot of cursed goodies.
Everyone gets a puzzle box. Excellent.
Everyone gets a little puzzle box, a few little extra events and stuff to interact with. We also have kind of another unique box at a much higher tier, which is kind of a more tailored experience to a certain player. And then finally, the classic, if you want to be really, really cursed, you can send us a picture of yourself and I will put you in the game into a cursed image in some regard.
Nice.
And speaking of cursed images, one of the things we just announced that I'm very, very excited for. So I've been doing the vast majority of the art within the book as well as the layout. But we are collaborating with like a broader kind of remit of artists for this one, like the analog horror community. And we've just announced that contributing to the book for art is going to be Trevor Henderson, who is the creator of Siren Head and various other analog horror ghoulies.
Nice.
You may have seen some of his kind of the analog horror world on the internet in terms of kind of like images. I think is very just synonymous with Trevor's art. It's so spooky, so great, and really, really excited to be working with him on some stuff. And in terms of stretch goals, that is what we're going to be doing, is bringing in more artists with different perspectives and different styles within that analog horror sphere to really up that what I call that analog like damaged VCR fuzz that we just want to smear all over the project, because it just has that intense, beautiful creepiness to it that I absolutely love.
Excellent. That's really cool. Okay, was there anything else that you wanted to wrap up on then for Don't Play This Game's Kickstarter? Was there any other things you can reveal at this time, or are we does that cover everything?
I think that covers everything I can reveal for now. I'd say keep an eye on our socials and stuff, because we'll be revealing more stuff as we kind of make our way to the campaign. I think the last thing I would say is that if people are curious, if this is like pique your interest but you're not sure, through kind of various links, which I'm sure will be kind of attached to this, you can download a demo of the game that we've mentioned earlier and give it a try, give it a whirl. Make your own spooky record and give it a try and see if this is something for you. Because for me, it really filled the void of that. I was really enjoying solo RPGs, but what I wanted to do is just scare myself shitless. And I think that is what Don't Play This Game is filling within the space. Is if you want a game that allows you to tell spooky stories that can scare yourself and scare your friends, and then cause them to make more scary stories that can scare all of you, then this game's definitely for you.
Yeah, and I think with respect to what you said about more information coming out before the Kickstarter, so this episode will mostly go out I'm looking at the date-wise, I'm going to aim to get this out on the 22nd of September, basically, so a week, within the week of us recording, so that way, we'll be at least fairly up to date with what information is out there, but as you said, like, keep an eye on the socials for more information as it comes out. Crystal, any final comments, questions?
No, I just followed you on all of your socials too, because this, like, I didn't know anything about the Kickstarter coming up. I knew a little bit about Shiver and stuff like that. And this is like, I got into solo RPGs over the summer. And so, like, this is definitely something that I'm like, oh, wow, this is really cool. So, and I love found footage stuff. I love horror. It's one of the genres that I absolutely love writing in. So, yeah, this is definitely something I'm very excited about.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look out for. And I think, most of our listeners, I think, will more than likely pick it up. Either through the Kickstarter or once it's out on general release. Right, so to wrap up then, if people want to find Parable Games, they can go to what bits of the internet?
So if they want to find Parable Games, we are at Games Parable on Twitter, X, whatever it is, for how long it survives.
Yeah, right.
On Facebook, you can find our two separate pages. We have a Parable Games site, but if you want to know what's going on with separate games, we've got one for Don't Play This Game, and we have one for Shiver RPG. So if you just search those, you'll find those. We also have a Shiver RPG players group as well on Facebook. In terms of Discord, we have Don't Play This server. The links should be kind of all on of our kind of main links. And for Shiver, we have our main Shiver RPG server as well, which you can find links for too. Instagram, we're at Shiver RPG. And I think that covers most of our social media. But if you're interested in picking up anything that we're releasing at the moment, we're at www.parablegames.co.uk. We broadly ship to most places, including the States, the UK, Europe, Australia, Canada. I think those are kind of main territories we cover at the moment in terms of shipping. So if you did want to pick anything up, you can. And we also do everything in digital as well. And for any of you who are looking for regular monthly horror story content for Shiver or for stuff to convert into other kind of systems, we have a Patreon. So Shiver RPG has a Patreon as well, where we release a new kind of full, ready to play out of the box adventure, case files, as well as new spooky games at our top tier, as well as scary ambiences to pop on whilst you're, which is sound designed by me and my old sound design background from my film TV days, finally getting use out of that degree in a way that I enjoy. So yes.
Excellent.
So head over there if that's when that's introduced. I think that's everything.
And I'll make sure as many of those links are available in the show notes for the episode. So obviously people can just click on the links below. Obviously, if you are interested in Darker Days Radio, you can head over to at Darker Days Radio on Instagram and on X and on Threads. I don't think we've got Blue Sky yet. I need to try and get an invite for that.
I got an invite. So
yeah, we'll make one there. Threads is more fun these days, I think. Threads is nice. It feels nice. Obviously, we're on Facebook. You can find us on our Discord. You can talk about this show and all other previous episodes. And of course, if there's any comments, ideas, or anything else, you can find us darkerdaysradio@gmail.com. I think that's everything, isn't it, Crystal?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. Great. So, Charlie, thank you again for coming on and chatting about Shiver and Don't Play This Game. And yeah, hopefully, I'm sure the Kickstarter will do fantastic. And thank you again, Crystal, for co-piloting this episode. Yeah. And thank you for everyone for listening. And just stay tuned for more episodes because we have got more things in the pipeline coming very soon. So goodbye for now.
This has been an episode of Darker Days Radio. Special thanks to Occam's Laser for the intro, outro, and new bumper music from their hit album, 9 Circles. Check out the rest of their work at occamslaser.bandcamp.com.